Okay, in this video I will show you how to prepare your portrait photograph for your self-portrait paintings. So after you've taken the photograph and you put the memory card in the back of the computer, you will see the little icon pop up, memory card. Okay, you're going to click open your Student Network drive, which is always the little blue globe, right? And you will see all the work that you have in there. Double click on the memory card, drag it over, DCIM 100 Canon, and then scroll down to find the pictures of you. If you need to change the view to make it easier to see who's who, that's fine. So I'm on Shane's computer, so I'm going to hold the shift key down and select all of the pictures of Shane, and then drag them into the Student Network folder and just drop them. And it's going to ask me, do I want to replace them, because they're already in there. So for right now, I'm just going to hit apply all and skip, because they're already in there. Okay, so now I can press the space bar, and that will give me a full-size preview of the images until I find the one that I like. Okay, that one's out of focus, so I'm going to go with this one. So that's 6266. I'm going to open this up in Photoshop. You can click on the gear, hover over this, over open with, and click on Photoshop, or just drag it down to the Photoshop icon. It's up to you. So this is opened up in Photoshop. So as we said, we are cropping to a 6x8 rectangle so that way we can create a 1x1 inch grid and then a 1.5 inch grid on our 9x12 canvases to enlarge it. So we're going to click on the crop tool, which is again your fifth tool down. You're going to make sure that on this drop down menu here, width by height by resolution is selected, and you're going to type in our dimensions, 6, 8, and 300 pixels per inch. So now is when you need to consider composition. Where do you want your face in the composition? How much background do you want to see? How much shoulders and torso do you want to see? Okay, so there's a lot of negative space up here. He's pretty much dead center. So what I'm going to do is scooch over this way. I'm going to bring up this corner because we don't need to see that much of his black sweatshirt. There's not really much going on there, right? Not that exciting. Bring this in. I'll bring him back over a little bit more. So maybe something like that would be good for this photograph. So at this point, you want to think about what looks the best, how to balance out the positive space, your face, versus the negative space, the background, and what that looks like. You can crop part of your face off if you wanted to, if you think that makes for a better composition. It's up to you what you decide looks good, okay? So let's say I like this, I'll hit enter or click on the check mark here to commit the changes. And at this point I could print it and then draw my grid over it. So the most important thing you do when you hit print is scroll down here to where it says printing marks, click on that little arrow, and make sure corner crop marks is selected. This will help you when measuring for your grid, just in case like the background is too white or something like that and you can't tell where the picture ends. Those crop marks will help you do that. Okay, I do want to show you what this should look like when you've drawn your grid. So if you just click on new guide layout under view, new guide layout, change columns to 6 and rows to 8, and make sure the gutter is set to 0. You now have 1 inch squares on your image. This will not print because these are just guides for visual guides for use in Photoshop. But what you can do, if you want to skip the ruler part, is click on your shape tool, click and hold, get to your line tool. Okay. And for this image, because the sweatshirt's black, you're going to lose some of the black lines. I'm going to change my fill to red. I'm going to change my weight to 2 pixels. And I'm going to place my cursor right over that blue line, that blue guideline. I'm going to hold the shift key down, and that will make sure that my cursor can only draw straight lines. If I don't hold my shift key down, it can be crooked. So I'm going to place my cursor directly over. And now this is where you have to be really careful. Okay, it's the same as using a ruler in real life. Okay, where you have to make sure that this is perfectly lined up. If I just like arbitrarily click out here and draw a line, that's not where it needs to be, right? So I'm going to do that, get rid of that. So you want to make sure your cursor is lined up right on that light blue line. And again, hold the shift key down the whole time. That way, all of your lines are perfectly straight and where they need to be. And then when you're done, you could print this and you won't have to use a ruler. Okay. So you want to make sure that they're perfect. I can go to view and clear the guides. So now I can see what this actually looks like with the red lines that I've drawn. Okay, so now that will help me when I'm ready to actually start drawing my face. So I'm going to go File, Print. Corner crop marks are still selected, so that's fine. We'll print it like that. Okay, and then at this point, you would be ready to start drawing for your painting. So I'm also going to go File, Save As. Make sure you're saving it to your Student Network drive. And I'm going to save it as self-portrait reference and click Save. Make sure the format stays as Photoshop if you've drawn the lines over the picture. If it's not a Photoshop format, like if you changed it to JPEG or something like that, you would not be able to edit these lines. So we want to leave it a Photoshop document. Okay, hit Save, hit OK, and you guys are ready to go for your actual painting. So to recap, you're clicking on the crop tool, you're changing it to width by height by resolution, you're changing this to 6, 8, 300. You can also do it horizontally if you want, so you could also just swap the height and width by clicking on those two little arrows, and your composition could look something like that if you wanted it to. Alright, but I'm not going to do that because it's going to mess up my lines here. And then when you're done, you can click on the shape tool, click and hold, you get a flyout menu, you click on line tool, change the fill to something, a color that will stand out against your skin and clothing and hair and all of that the best. You can change the weight to 2 pixels and then draw your straight lines by holding the shift key down, and you will have something that looks like that. Hit File, Print, and make sure you click on corner crop marks when you print it, and then also File, Save As, Self-Portrait Reference, and make sure it's saved as a PSD file. Okay, that does it. Thanks for watching. Okay, in this video I will show you how to draw your grid so that you can begin enlarging your drawing so that it's ready for Canvas. So this was the picture that I edited in the previous video and printed out, and you can see the red lines are here. If you didn't do the lines in Photoshop, that's totally fine. What you're going to do is take a ruler, use these corner crop marks to line your ruler up. So it's at the 0 and the 6, and I'm going to make a little mark at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then do the same thing at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then I would just use my ruler to connect those marks that I made to create that 1-inch grid on my drawing. That way I am ready to go. Okay, so then once you're done with that and you have your 1-inch grid on your printed photo, you will get a 9x12 piece of tracing paper. Okay, and we're going to draw a 1.5-inch grid on this. So I'm going to hold my ruler, line my 0 up with the edge of the paper, and some of these might not be totally perfect, which is fine. We're just going to ignore like that last row. As long as everything else is correct, it's fine. So I'm going to make a mark at 1.5. 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3, plus 1.5 is 4.5, 6, 7.5, and then the 9. I'm going to do the same thing up here. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, and then the 9. Okay, and now these little marks tell me where I would draw my grid line. So it's very important that you're very careful when you're measuring and you're accurate, and that you're using a nice sharp pencil. If you have a mechanical pencil, that probably works the best. So I'm going to draw these straight lines, taking my time to line up my ruler so I don't have any wonky lines. If you do have wonky lines, then your face is going to be wonky. Okay. So then when I'm done with this, I would flip my paper, line my ruler up again with the edge of the paper, and I'm going to again do a 1.5 inch grid. So 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, and 10.5, and then I have my 12. And do the same thing on the bottom, 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, and then the 12, okay? So I will continue to measure, draw straight lines, and you can see what this looks like when I'm all done. Okay, and there we have it. So I have my 1.5 inch grid drawn on my 9x12 sheet of tracing paper. Now what I would do is flip this over, okay? That way, when you start to draw here, draw your face here, if you do make a mistake and you need to erase, you're not going to erase these grid lines that you so painstakingly drew, okay? So again, I would flip over and draw your face on the opposite side that the grid is drawn on. Okay? So I started this one, okay? So grid is drawn on this side. I flipped it over, okay? And you can see I started to block in the basic outlines of the face here. So when you guys start this, you want to really take your time. Zoom in a little bit here. And look at where the major parts of the face intersect with lines, okay? So another thing you can do too is if you want to label these, you can go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and then do the same thing here. And that will help you figure out where you are, okay? So if I'm here at this point where this intersects, it curves up and comes up to maybe that's like 1/4 ish. And I'm not gonna worry too much about what the hair is doing right now. I just wanna get the basic outlines. This hair flips up here and then comes down, and then this actually has a line that is right around that corner, and this flips up. Okay, so right now I'm kind of drawing pretty light and sketchy because I'm not sure if what I'm drawing is what I want to keep. Okay, so you want to stop and check and revisit what you're doing, and you want to follow the curves that you see. So this is a little more towards the right than halfway. So I'm going to make a little mark there so then I can kind of draw that line down. And there's another little line in there for the hairline. And this comes up. And then this comes out. Okay, and now if you find that you're struggling, sometimes it helps to draw upside down. This little tiny earlobe pokes out here. That way you're not thinking about what you're drawing, okay? We don't necessarily need to make connections to this is an ear. Okay, so there's this outline started. So all I do is I just take my time, I look at where points intersect, like this comes to probably like 1/5 the way, so this is about here. And look at that curve, the shape of the curve. as it comes in. And then his chin comes up-ish in the middle here. And then this line connects here. And like I said, the first lines you draw aren't necessarily going to be the last ones you draw, because you might need to adjust things as you continue blocking your shapes in. This comes here, drops down. Sweatshirt. See, now that's too big, right? That doesn't work. Look how skinny that is. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that line. So it comes down at more of a straight line. It's much skinnier. Okay. Okay, and then this. This actually comes down like this. Okay, so there's this basic outline. Now is the time to start adding in, you know, the fun stuff like the hair. Okay, and then figure out where there's going to be hairline that comes here. There's a diagonal. Okay, now will come all of the detail stuff in the ears. You know, double check, make sure you're happy with the outlines of your face before you start to do the details. We don't want details until we're happy with the outlines. Okay, so that's the ear there. I'm not really happy with this chin. I'm not sure what's going on here. Let's see. Maybe if I bring this down a little bit. Slim that down a little bit. Yeah, I think that looks better. Now see, I need to erase this line. And if I do that, no big deal. I'm not erasing my grid. So all is well, right? So then you'll start to block in, you know, the actual shape of the hair. You know, it's hair, so it's not a hard line there. Okay. Now his eyes and nose and mouth. The t-shirt underneath sort of curves like this. And there's a lot of shadow going on in here. And then there's sparkly bit there for the chain and the necklace. Okay. So here is a shadow shape. It's a shadow that's being cast by the sweatshirt and the placement of the light, and then the shadow comes up here. And blocking in the shapes of the shadows is going to be important for you when you start to paint, so you remember what's dark and what's light. So you are going to want to spend some time on this and block in those shadow shapes. Okay, so it should look something like this when you're done. And then at this point, you would be ready for your canvas and to transfer your design. So I'm going to continue working on the face here, and then I will show you the canvas in the next step. Okay, once you have something that looks like this, where all of the major facial features have been drawn and you've outlined some of the highlights and shadows, the shapes that those will be in your final painting, you are ready to transfer to canvas. Okay, so it's the same deal. This is the canvas boards that we're going to be using. Write your name here. Name. Okay. Flip this over. And the canvases aren't exactly 9 by 12. They say they are, but they're a little bit off. So that's okay. It's going to cut off a little bit of this side, which is not a big deal because we don't really need that. So you'll place this where you want it. Okay. Actually, I should have drawn the shadow shape here too, huh? Okay. So something like that for the background shadows. Okay. So at this point, you can tape it down by wrapping tape around the edges. Oops. So again, you want to tape in 2 places so that it doesn't move. Nothing important in that square. So I'll tape here. And then I will tape here. Okay. And then I will get my infamous tracing paper that we've been using, or transfer paper that we've been using all year, and possibly switch to a pen at this point, and then you will go over all of your lines just like we've done in the past and transfer all of the important lines from your drawing once it's been completed. Okay? And then once your drawing is transferred, of course you would need to move your transfer paper down to finish this part because this is smaller than my drawing. Once those pencil lines or graphite lines are transferred here, you can take a second and go over anything that might have come out too light. Just use a regular pencil, and then you're ready to start painting. Okay, and again, we're doing monochromatic self-portraits, so you'll pick a color and you'll be mixing it with black, white, and gray. Okay, so that is how to set up your self-portrait in a nutshell. So again, just to recap, printed photo, 1-inch grid on that photo. You can either do it in Photoshop or use a ruler and draw the lines with pencil. Then you get a piece of 9 by 12 tracing paper. You draw a 1.5-inch grid on that tracing paper, and then you break it down square by square and redraw your face till you get something that looks like this, outlining some of the highlights and the shadows. Tape it to canvas board, transfer paper underneath, pen, and transfer your lines, and then make sure once you're done with that all the lines have transferred properly. It looks just like this. Then you can save this. I would hold on to this while you paint. It will help you with the shadows and highlights and stuff like that. And make sure your name is on the back of your canvas so that you don't lose it. Okay? So have fun with these. Happy drawing, happy gridding, and happy painting. Thanks for watching.